Welcome to Attitude of Altitude podcast presented by Planet of One. This podcast is designed to inspire change in people to become the best versions of themselves and live their best lives. We share stories of struggle and success to encourage and empower listeners to be bold, take action, and be the change we desire to see in this world. We are all part of this planet. We are all a planet of one. Know that your attitude determines your altitude in life. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to Attitude of Altitude. I am so happy to have our guest with us today, who at the age of 10 went through an incident at school that altered her life to the degree that at college she had the chance to get a dual degree and was one class away from that second degree, but wouldn't take that one class, which was public speaking. And then her life altered at the age of 47, where she completely changed and it became all about empowering herself and empowering others. Please help me welcome Karen Leffler. Hi, Karen. How are you?
I am well. It's a little chilly in Northern California today for the first time in months.
Oh, so, nice.
No, life is good.
Oh, great. I'm so glad to have you with us. I've been looking forward to chatting. Karen came to me through a friend of ours that says, you've got to meet Karen. You've got to hear about her. So, Karen, I've heard and we've chatted. Let the listeners know a little bit about what happened when you were a child, what started this journey for you.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm now going on 72. So my life has had some pretty transformational points in time. And probably the first was at the age of 10. Now, I was the good student. I was the teacher's pet. I was the rule follower. My penmanship was perfect and all of that. And so it came time where we had a book report to do. And we had to turn it in on a certain day. Well, I had not read the book, but I had to do my book report. So the night before, I very carefully, in my perfect penmanship, wrote out on binder paper my book report, which was the entire cover flap of the book, word for word. So I get up the next day and the teacher says, who wants to volunteer first to come to the front of the class? And I said, yes, I will. And I went up there and I read my book report. I sat back down and then the teacher said, well, that was wonderful, Karen. Now I want to read another book report of somebody who's not here today. And she picked up the book, opened the flap, and read word for word from the book exactly what I had read. That moment truly halted me from ever using my voice again in class. I was so embarrassed. My face was as red as a tomato. I was practically in tears just because of the embarrassment of it. And I chose never to speak in front of class again, to volunteer. And that carried me all the way through grammar school and high school and into college. And now I learned a lot about plagiarism at the age of 10 years old, and I would never do that again. I learned the lesson well. But it wasn't until, I was in college and I had a degree in chemistry. I was working at UCSF in cancer research at the time through college and after. And I wouldn't take the one speech class to have the second degree in business. Now, why would anybody in their right mind take a speech class if they're afraid of public speaking? So I didn't. It wasn't until I was 47, the mother of 3 sons, and my youngest was 10 years old. And he comes home from school crossing a very busy intersection, and there's a safety island in the middle of it. And he almost got hit. If it wasn't for the safety island, he would have been hit by 2 cars. Wow. And he came home and told me this, and I said, well, Kevin, they're going to take that safety island out. And he said, well, that's stupid. And I said, well, you could do something about it. You could write the city hall and see if they, tell them your story. tell him how it saved your life. So he did. And then he got a petition going with 400 names from parents from the 3 schools that use that intersection in our neighborhood. 400. Now, keep in mind, I'm terrified of speaking. So he's invited to speak now to the city hall, city council. And he goes up there at the age of 10 with his little colored pencil drawings on his piece of paper and says, you don't have to remove it. You can just redesign it.
Wow.
And he showed him how. You move it back 5 feet, so cars aren't running into it and all that. Well, Kevin used his voice, fought City Hall, and won. And he was interviewed on TV several times. He was in the newspaper. He was on the radio. And I thought, how can he do that? And, just using his voice to make a difference. So it was about that time, I was 47 then, that I was giving up a career. I was a quilter for 19 years, another isolated career. And I couldn't do that work anymore. And I knew in my heart of hearts, at the gut level, my soul, I knew that if I could overcome the fear of public speaking, I could do anything. I just didn't have a clue what it was. And 5 times in 1 week, Toastmasters was mentioned to me. And for those of you who don't know Toastmasters, it is basically a worldwide organization that teaches communication and leadership skills. And I showed up terrified, visited actually 5 clubs before I found one that felt like the right fit for me, that would challenge me. And that turning point changed my entire outlook on life, how I look at life, how I take on a challenge, overcome a fear. And that journey has kept me now for over 25 years, changing careers, what I do, all those things.
So all those years, going through college, all the careers that you held while having also your kids, were you on purpose choosing careers that you didn't have to speak?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. My first job was at University of California, San Francisco, and I was a chief technician in cancer research. So I worked in a laboratory, in my lab coat, up in the middle of the forest, actually. It was behind the medical center. And it was very isolated. But I left, and this is another thing where I think your values can help you make a choice in life, is that our entire lab quit en masse on ethical reasons, because I was the chief technician. My data was being altered for publication. And I said, this isn't the data I gave you. And I said, I can't work here. I can't work if you're going to change the data. So we went to the chancellor and all of this. Eventually, the entire lab quit and went other places. Well, at that time, there was no grant money available at UC Berkeley. So I was one of 2 to be working on this project, but there was no money. So I wandered into Macy's just to save my own sanity of staying home with nothing to do. I didn't have children yet at that point. And I fell into retailing and loved it. Loved the people, loved interacting with people, just as customers and things. And I ended up becoming a buyer. And I was just at the point of accepting a promotion to administrator or store manager for Macy's. And I thought, I would have to talk. I would have to talk in front of groups. I would have to give reports. I would have to do all this. And I said, well, about that time I found out I was expecting my first child. So easy out, didn't have to explain why I didn't take the advancement, and off I went. And that's when I became a quilter, because the buying position I had was fabric. So I had all these fabric swatches and became a 19-year career raising my sons, just doing quilting. I could stay home, I could tend their activities, I could take them to sports, but it was me and my machine. No speaking necessary. And that served me well. Until my elbow went out, and then I said, I really need to get over this fear and figure out what I want to do with the rest of my life, because there's a lot of life left.
What is it in Toastmaster once you joined them that began to lift you up out of the mental thinking that you
Yeah.
can't speak?
Yeah, I love the feedback that we get in Toastmasters because we might prepare a speech and it may have an objective of using gestures or eye contact or visual aids, whatever it might be. Well, I was on speech number 4 and I was talking about adopt a family at Christmas time.
Hmm.
And I was sharing my experience working as a volunteer for Adopt a Family. And all I did in my little 5 to 7 minute speech was share 3 stories of families that needed to be adopted. And at the end of that, my club ended up adopting 3 families
Hmm.
from that. So my feedback became, Karen, you've got the presentation down now. Now get out of your head and just speak from the heart. And I can tell you that since that day, I never write out a speech. I have my points I want to share and why I feel it's important to share them. And that has truly changed my whole outlook on life. Like, how can I be the vehicle to just bring a message or bring meaning to something or speak from my true self, you know, and that's all I can do,
So you
you know.
got out of the thinking that it's about you and now it's about others.
Right, right. So when I speak, at women's groups or networking events or something, I'm just the vehicle to the message. And that has served me well in volunteer opportunities that have crossed my path since then. Yeah.
What expanded in Toastmaster towards the kids? Because I know you
Oh,
yourself understood what it was
yeah.
like at 10
At
to lose your
10,
voice.
yeah, it was amazing how the 10-year-old has played a part. My own 10-year-old self,
Hmm.
my 10-year-old son, and him using his voice. So I had the opportunity in Toastmasters to go to a grammar school nearby in my neighborhood and teach youth leadership. And this is an 8-week course for kids in school, at high school as well, where they basically go through the whole Toastmaster program, how to speak impromptu, how to give constructive, positive feedback to someone. So I ended up teaching 10-year-olds who are in the 5th grade youth leadership and I did that for 3 years. And to see, I'll share just one story of one child, because in 5th grade, even to stand up in the classroom when the teacher, most children, if they're called upon, stay seated, but to stand up next to your desk and be witnessed by your fellow students and the teacher was terrifying for a lot of children. And there was one particular boy where if the students were to label him, they probably label him the nerd, never gets picked for the team. And he ended up, he was terrified at first, but he got more comfortable standing up, and everybody took a role every week, whether they were speaking or impromptu speaking, they have to answer a question. But when it came his time to give a speech, he talked about building NASCARs with his father, who was a NASCAR racer. And this 10-year-old boy got to help him build those cars and race those cars. And I can tell you, it just gives me goosebumps all over just thinking about him, because the children in that class, their mouths were wide open in shock, saying, "Wow, you do that?" And that kid was looked up to. He had a smile on his face that you just couldn't take away. But the confidence that he got and found his voice at the age of 10, when I lost my voice at 10, and it wasn't till I was 47 that I found it again. And when I speak to children or whoever, I just say everyone has a voice. Everyone, whether they're 10 or 110, everybody has something that they care about that they need to share. or maybe they want to share and don't feel safe enough doing it. I just think everybody has a voice.
How crucial do you think training people in speaking makes a difference?
Well,
do you think it's crucial?
I wish I'd taken the speech class in college, and yet my story really unfolded because I didn't, right, at the time. And speaking, whether it's communicating well, is something that can be learned, absolutely learned. Toastmasters is a safe environment for that. And I encourage people to do it, whether they're looking for a promotion, maybe they're getting passed over because they don't know how to communicate their goals or, dreams. And for me, it just opened my whole life up. The people that suddenly came into my life because I found my voice. I changed careers because of Toastmasters once I got comfortable.
What did you end up going into after that?
Well, you mentioned the friend that recommended me, Mary Jane. Mary Jane. She and I ended up in a company called Weekenders, and it was direct sales. And in direct sales, it was women's fashions. Now, I was pretty shy all along. I mean, nobody ever saw me change clothes, and suddenly I'm in this direct sales business doing fashion presentations and homes, and I didn't realize how much I missed by not having a sister or a lot of girlfriend time. I was kind of the serious one, always working, studying. And it just opened up a whole new world of, so this is what women talk about when they're together? Well, how cool is that? And I remember going to my first conference, national conference in direct sales. And I saw the president, very statuesque woman. She was standing by the elevator, and I went up to her and introduced myself and, just wanted to meet her. And she said, so what are your goals in Weekenders? And I said, and I paused. Now, keep in mind, I'd only been in Toastmasters about 4 months. And I looked at her and I said, my goal is to be the keynote speaker at one of these national conferences. And inside I'm going, you just said what out loud? Because the power of what we put out to the universe often, ends up coming our way. So she just stopped kind of dead in her tracks and looked at me and said, well, no one's ever said that to me before. And so over the course of 12 years, I spoke at national conferences, doing trainings and different things several times. But it was the experience of direct sales, teaching women the business, and not so much applauding my successes as being successful and acknowledged on stage, but for me to be standing in the wings and applaud my girls from my group. It was called Women Who Dare, by the way, Women Who Dream, Achieve, Recognize, and Empower. That was the name of my unit. But for me to stand in the side wings and applaud their success as they walked across stage, that's the best. That's just the best.
Did you get to share your story on stage? Like what happened to you at 10? Was that a part of how you empowered others?
Partly, but I think in that environment, for me, it was just having fun. I mean, we just had fun, trying on clothes and new clothes every season. I mean, how cool is that? So it was more sharing my enthusiasm with them. And there was also, the bigger benefit. It benefited them and, dressing simply and easily and affordably and all of that. But the true, I guess, the most rewarding time in those 12 years in fashion happened after Katrina. And Katrina happened, and Miss Mary Jane called me from Mississippi and said, okay, Leffler, you need to get your butt on a plane. We have work to do down here. And I said, what are you talking about? Well, 3 trips to Mississippi later, after Katrina, we went specifically not having a clue what we were doing, but knew that we wanted to make a difference in teachers' lives. So the teachers after Katrina, it was like 2 weeks later, they were mandated to be teaching in front of class. Now, maybe many of these women didn't even have a home. They were living out of their cars, and they were teaching in makeshift trailers that were set up as classrooms. So we went to Mississippi and met with teachers. They didn't have a clue who we were. We stayed at relief centers, and we just went in and said, pick 3 colors, a dark, light, and an accent color, got their sizes, made out a wish list for them, and left. And they thought, who are they? Who are these crazy women who came in? So because of that, we went back and we used our voices with our customers, and we did fashion shows and events, and just said, and we brought pictures, tons of pictures of the devastation, and said, if you want to make a difference, sponsor a teacher, buy her a jacket, help, donate towards a pair of slacks or a skirt or something that she can wear. And after those 3 trips, we had sent individual boxes wrapped as gifts with from your friends who love you in California. We wardrobed over 800 teachers with 10-piece wardrobes. That, to me, is my sweet spot. We didn't have an idea what we would do, how we would do it. When we came back, we said, oh my God, we have just committed to $450,000 of clothing to these women. Now what are we going to do? Well, you figure it out. And you speak from that, going back to speak from the heart, not the head. Like, don't worry about the details, like the how-tos. Just say, here's the need.
You're saying it so well, Karen. When we step out of our own head and just go with what feels right to the heart, and you use your voice and your talent to actually make a bigger impact than you. You weren't concentrating on you. You were concentrating on the women that needed your help, and grew out of that into empowering all these women back into their life.
Right.
That's something amazing, where a lot of people get caught up in the how-to, where when you have the heart and the voice, you use your voice properly, you start to expand beyond anything imaginable.
Yeah, it's the why for me. The how and the what you need to do, all those little details work themselves out if you know the why. Why are you doing this? Why am I speaking? Why do I want to make a difference? Why do I want to tell people they can make a difference? Because it feels good. It feels good when you're making a difference, and it could be something very, very simple. But that's the environment I choose to live in, today, and, in my life today as a volunteer in various capacities. But Fashions for Compassion was a biggie. Yeah.
Now, weekends are closed, obviously, and then you are transitioning. I know. What did you bring with you from that experience to the next career?
From that, that was in 2008, so it's already been 12 years. And I thought, do I want to jump back into another company? Do I want to do that? And, I just said, I don't know. It didn't feel right, for me at the time. So I was still in Toastmasters. I knew that my voice could make a difference. So I made a pitch to a nonprofit nearby called Shelter Inc. And what they do is prevent homelessness, because many families have lost their homes in those years, 2008 and 2009, because they maybe were short $900 to get their car repaired so that they could go to work, so that they could pay the rent. And so many people didn't have that. So I went to Shelter Inc. because I'm an outdoorsy kind of girl. I love hiking and all of that. And I had been a participant in Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. They have a program called Team in Training. And I knew their program. So I thought I could do this for Shelter Inc. So I went to their board and said, what could you do with $200,000? And they said, who are you?
Did you have $200,000 to give them?
No. Details, right? But I knew people who were losing their homes. And so I went to them and I said, I know a program that I could do for you. And it's called Hike for Shelter. So we would enroll people who wanted to learn how to hike. And we'd start short and flat. And each week we would get longer and steeper. And they would raise money for you, a minimum of $4,000 each. And their reward for doing that for you is to go to the Grand Canyon and have a guided hike in the Grand Canyon. Now, I knew that was a sweet spot for a lot of people because logistically, that's a hard place to get to. And how would you hike? And could you do it? And all of that. So we trained for 4 months. Our hikers raised an average of $5,300 each. And we did the hike 2 times and raised over $322,000 for Shelter Inc. Now, that was easy peasy because I love to hike. I love to be outdoors. Like, come on, let's go hike up Mount Diablo. And their reward was they got in shape. They knew they made a difference. And they got a great trip out of it. And many are still hiking today who never hiked in their life until they were invited to be a participant. Now, Shelter Inc. still has the legacy of all those donors. And that goes on. So even though I'm not involved anymore with that, it's a program that was fun to do. You know, raising money doesn't have to be hard and laborious if you find some fun way to do it.
Karen, I love for people to catch those things.
Yeah.
The listeners to understand that you took something that you're passionate about, hiking,
Right.
and you used your voice to go, how do I make a difference for a group that actually needs our help?
Mm-hmm.
And you combine the two by simply putting in front of them a way of learning to hike, bringing out what they love, giving them what they want and desire to get them to their next level. Right. And that allowed you to raise 300 and how much thousand?
322,000 in
That's
2
incredible.
hikes. Yeah. Yeah.
While you even thinking that process.
Yeah. Don't get hung up on the details. Just invite people along. And what made it work for them was they understood the why. When they were asking people to donate to support them on the hike, it wasn't about them. It was about the people who would still be able to stay in their homes or find shelter. And that need still goes on today, and they do fundraising in different ways, but that was a really wonderful, wonderful experience to do that. Yeah. So after direct sales closed, it's like, okay, what could I do? I can use my voice. I can tell people that there's a need. So that has led me to some other nonprofits locally that I speak for, if there's a need. Now with Corona, and COVID, those public speaking engagements aren't there. But for me to be an ambassador for a nonprofit, to just get the word out, because so many people they may be passionate about a nonprofit or a need, but they don't have the confidence to use their voice to get out there and share the need with the community. So that's
now, tell the people what you actually did with the fabric from your past to what COVID-19 brought. Because honestly, it's that initiative that makes a difference.
So now with coronavirus, and I had actually been sick for a while with this whole respiratory thing, thinking maybe I had it, but I didn't. So there you go. But I was isolated for about 4 months. So I'm very, very cautious about what I do today. And so the whole sheltering in place thing, just, well, gosh, what do I do now? And you start feeling less than worthy, well, gosh, I'm not worth anything. I can't go out and do this or that or speak. So I had a closet full of quilting stash. The phrase is, she who dies with the most fabric wins. Well, I had boxes and boxes of really nice quality cotton quilting fabric. People needed masks. They couldn't get the PPEs, and the medical hospitals around us are many, and the need was great. So I just started making fabric masks and invited a few other quilting friends along, the way. So I had everything cut and ready to go, and ended up donating about 850 masks to, orthopedic groups, to hospitals, to nurses, first responders, those kinds of things. So I still have a stash, and, people who need them, can get them. But that was one way that I felt like I can do that. I can simply do that. So how I'm sitting is this laptop is sitting on top of my sewing machine, and so, I can look outside and see the neighbors go by, and I wave, and, it's just a fun thing to do, and it's easy. And my boxes are empty now.
Wow. And you don't sit still, even though that through COVID and through all of that, you did the mask, but then you also joined another company because you want to empower other women. Tell me a little about what you're doing now, too.
Oh, so here I am. I haven't done direct sales in 12 years. And Miss Mary Jane, she keeps coming up in my life. I think we all have that one or two special people in our lives that kind of nudge us,
Mm-hmm.
or we hope they do. Anyway, she called up and told me about this company called Color Street. Now, it's nail strips. It's direct sales, and it's only 3 years old. And I thought, Mary Jane, I haven't done my nails in 12 years, ever since Weekenders closed. It's like, why bother? I'm working in the garden. I'm too rough on my hands and all that, but I'll try it. So I placed an order. And I got to say, I did a mani-pedi in like less than 10 minutes, and I gardened without gloves, and I did not break a nail or chip any nail polish. So I said, okay, I can do this. Now, my point is, I'm not doing it to build another big organization. In Weekenders, I called myself an accidental leader. I didn't want to bring people in and teach them the business. It just happened because people saw I was having fun. Well, I have a feeling that this is what's happening here now in Color Street, is because my why is we're in a very different time where women can't go and do their spa days or their, mani-pedis, 'cause salons are closed, beauty salons are closed. People in the beauty industry are really hurting. And I thought, well, this is a great product. I can at least tell women about it. Women can stay home, still feel good about themselves, maybe pamper themselves a little bit by doing a mani-pedi at home. Tell their friends about it. For me, it's all about, hey, we used to recommend movies and restaurants. Well, we aren't going to movies, and we can't go out to restaurants now. So here's something that we can certainly share. So I jumped in, and, I've been at all of like 4 weeks, and already 2 women came on board and said, well, I want to do it too. If you're doing it, I want to do it, and we'll build together. And it's just fun. It's just fun.
You're speaking from the heart again.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were paying attention to it, but you're speaking from the heart.
Yeah. That's, I'm not good with bottom lines and numbers and all of that sort of stuff. I mean, yes, I can be very goal oriented, that's part of the science and the math background, but that's not my why. It's never been my why. And I think we as women, if we find that something that nurtures us in a different way, that we know we're helping someone, but because by helping someone, you help yourself. I mean, we've always heard that. It's not a self-centered thing. It's a reaching out and offering kind of thing, and there are women out there that are looking for something, that they may enjoy doing. So it's an interesting ride again, and virtually, right?
Uh-huh.
I mean, this is a whole new world, to be communicating via Zoom or Facebook Live or something. And that was another reason I decided to hop back in to direct sales is because we are in a virtual world now. You know, we aren't getting together and doing a Manny party with a group of women. We just aren't. Maybe again we will when it's safe to do so. But right now, yeah, we can chit chat with our lady friends and have some fun and do our nails.
So you came on board because the opportunity has shifted and opened up the doors even further
Right.
for you and for others. So you're able
Absolutely.
to shift quicker
Mm-hmm.
because you found your way, you found your voice.
Right. Yeah, and I think just that it always goes back. I ask women, what is your why? You know, if they come on board into a business, whether it was back in Weekenders or in any direct sales, what is your why? You know, is it to be in service to something bigger besides a paycheck? And that, to me, is what this is about. How can we help women save time, save money, have fun? You know, all of that. That affects the rest of the dynamics in any woman's life, I think. You know, if we're happy, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
we bring that to our family and our relationship and to friends. And, you know, people say, oh, you always seem so happy and, you know, all that. And I say, well, why not?
Because it's true. When a woman empowers herself,
Mm-hmm.
it changes the family life, it changes the community life. We go
Right.
beyond just us. We take
Absolutely.
it much bigger.
Right.
Tell me a little about the nonprofit that you're involved with currently, because you're always involved
Currently.
with something.
Yeah, there's always something out there. And even that has shifted. But after doing the program for sheltering, which had to do with homelessness, in more recent years, I've been involved with a nonprofit called White Pony Express. And they're in Northern California. After I tell you what it is, I encourage anybody to look them up because it's something that could be duplicated anywhere in this country. And people are hurting and not getting enough food. So it began with this simple premise that we have an abundance in our society of food and perishable things that are going into a dumpster every day. So this woman, Dr. Connor Weiland, I think that's her name. Anyway, I could be wrong on that. She formed this about 4 years ago where she went to grocery stores. First, it started with urban farmers who had an abundance of fruit and vegetables in their yards that they didn't know what to do with. She collected it and then passed it out to soup kitchens and nonprofits who serve food. She built it so that now they go on a daily basis, 7 days a week, from 7 in the morning until 7 at night. They have refrigerated trucks that go out to Safeways and Nob Hills, Costco's, you know, restaurants, well, when restaurants were open, like Cheesecake Factory and Starbucks and that, and they would take the perishable food. We're talking deli meat, fruits and vegetables, bakery items, all of that. And within 2 hours, it comes back to the warehouse. It's redistributed and given out to 80 nonprofits who serve the underserved by bringing them fresh food. And we have soup kitchens like Loaves and Fishes, which have volunteers. They have tons of volunteers that come in and prepare the food and serve it. Although even today that's harder with COVID because many are retired folks that don't feel safe that. So volunteers are needed there. But White Pony would deliver fresh food, which was then cooked and served within hours of us picking it up. And they do that day in, day out, all but one day a year on Christmas Day. And it's just growing, and it's something that could be duplicated. So these stores, it's a win-win-win. So the stores get a tax write-off, White Pony gets in-kind donation, and the nonprofits who serve the underserved and bring the food, it could be even high schools who have a culinary course, and then the extra food goes home to their families. They're all being served. It's win-win-win. So I was involved initially doing food rescue for a year. Found that was a little too hard on my back because we would, be picking anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 pounds up and in the truck and out of the truck. So that took its toll. So I said, oh, I still believe in the need of bringing food to people these days. So I said, I can use my voice. That doesn't bother my back at all. So I became an ambassador for White Pony Express and speak like to different charity groups like National Charity League or a Rotary Club or something like that, and just say, this is what White Pony does. We need more drivers, we need more volunteers, and this is how you can help. So they added a new piece to what they do besides the food, and that they call it mobile boutiques. And again, things are kind of on hold right now, but they have a huge warehouse where people donate new or like new clothing, accessories, shoes, educational toys for children, and they are so meticulously cared for. You walk in there and you just feel the love that these people have, taking these garments and hanging them, removing the labels, sorting them, and getting them ready for mobile boutiques, which they were doing about once a month. And they go into an underserved community, and people would shop for free. They'd get a couple shopping bags, and they could shop for 45 minutes and take whatever they need. So it's interesting because full circle now, my experience and knowing people in direct sales, whether it's LuLaRoe or Cabby or Ruby Ribbon, those kinds of women's fashions. Could be men too, I just don't have those connections. But at the end of a season, what do they do with all this stuff sitting in their warehouse? So a few phone calls here and there, I just say, what are you doing? You want to make some good. Again, it's a win-win-win situation. They get a tax write-off, they donate to White Pony. White Pony gets in-kind donations, and the people they serve get beautiful products and make them feel good. It's about raising their self-esteem, having them feel good about who they are and how they bring themselves. And that goes a long way, in people's lives, if they feel like they're put together. My mom always said, never leave the house without lipstick on, right? I mean, you just feel better. Now we put a mask over it, so what do we know?
It's incredible how your son's courage prompted you to truly find your voice, and look at the impact you've had and continue to have by finding your voice. So if I put you in front of a whole group of people, what would you say to them, Karen? What would you encourage them to do?
To dig down deep inside and say, I have something to share. Maybe in their family life, they're not being heard or not being acknowledged. To find that place where they can share and share their truth. If I had one tip for anybody, whether it's in the career or their personal life, look into Toastmasters. I can tell you another nuance of it is not just about communication and leadership per se, but you learn how to give feedback. And I would say that raising 3 sons, especially when they were all teenagers, to give feedback without, being the demanding parent or the put down or whatever. I never believed in name calling. My mantra is 2 words: be kind. And I think you can be a parent. I think you can set boundaries. I think you can teach a child or teach anyone with constructive feedback, because it's all about how it can make a difference. Have you looked at it this way or that way, or this is my experience of you. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, but that's my experience. Tell me why I'm off. So it's a way to open up dialogue and discussion without getting angry about anything, right?
Yes, because
So
you continue to be in Toastmaster yourself.
I do. Mainly because, well, I love to mentor new people. So when new people come in and they're really nervous, I just share my story. Oh my gosh. I mean, the first speech I gave my niece, I was wearing a short skirt. It was sort of Ally McBeal days. And, I had my high heels on and my knees were like shaking, right? Lesson number 1, wear a long skirt and flats for the next speech. And now it's no problem. But then it's like, okay, I don't want to be so nervous, So those are all those things. But to mentor new people, I think is huge. And that goes in all elements of life too. We had students come in and sort of give their run through on their science report they had to give, and we give them constructive feedback, and they come back the next week and said, aced it,
Nice.
Thank you for the feedback. So that's really cool. But the other reason I stay in now is technology is changing. I mean, look at how we're communicating right now. I really, if anything pushes my buttons stress-wise, it's technology. So for me you should see how I have all this set up on books and tape and smiley faces and all of that just to be able to communicate with you. But to do communication on Zoom and PowerPoints and how you do that, how you share a screen and how do you record, I'm still learning. And if we're going to live in this world today, I need to learn that. It's like stepping out of my comfort zone once again.
And it's perfectly okay. You're teaching through that you don't have to have it all figured out.
Right.
You just step up and begin.
And ask somebody who knows how to do it. Like, how did you do that? Teach me. And to be open to that. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Karen, what is the best way for our viewers and listeners to get a hold of you?
Well, let's see. I would say through email probably is the best if you have questions about, anything. You ask me about anything, about Toastmasters, about the face masks, about Color Street, I would say that. So it's Karen L. Leffler, KarenLLe, F as in Frank, LER, @gmail.com.
Awesome. And I'll make sure to include all of that stuff also in our show notes so people know. Sorry, go ahead, Karen.
Great. Yeah. And I was going to say, if you're going to do that, that's great. So if you want face masks, my whole thing is stay safe, stay covered, match your outfit, coordinate your colors.
Because it makes you feel good at the same time.
It does. At least strike up a conversation with people in the store like, oh, that's really cute,
And I've seen people stop each other in the store because they like their face masks or something.
Exactly. Yeah.
Karen, is there anything else that you'd like to share that I may not have asked you?
Just for women or whoever is watching this, just to know that your voice makes a difference. It really does. What you're passionate about, whether it's pets or, cooking or gardening, whatever it is, share it, because we learn by you sharing your passions and finding your voice. So whether you're 10 or 110, you have something to share that we need to hear.
Beautifully said. Karen, thank you so much for being with us today.
So welcome. What a delight to meet you.
Thank you. Yeah. And to our listeners, please remember, your attitude in life determines your altitude in everything. So if you want things to change, begin to change your attitude and watch how life begins to open up in all kinds of directions. Thank you so much for being with us. We'll see you in the next episode. Have a great one.